Hi guys, welcome back to the Drive Live channel, and in today's video we are going to be discussing whether you need to idle your diesel Volvo or your Volvo in general, or any car for that matter, in cold weather. Now, those of you who are regular viewers of the channel, you'll see that the car is looking exceptionally clean today. That's because I've had it cleaned. They've done a really good job actually. I find that when the car gets dirty, I lose motivation to make videos. I'm not quite sure why, but now it's absolutely clean. Apart from the exhaust, I might have to do that after this video because it's looking a bit filthy. But yeah, let's get on with it. So, for those of you that don't know what idling is, it's essentially where you start your car and let it warm up. Now, the older people amongst you, you will know that back in the day, you had to do this to make a car run right at all in cold weather. The first diesel cars especially, you'd have to crank over a few times and crank the glow plugs and just let them sit until they warmed up, to allow the oil to circulate and allow it to sort of smooth out the idle. Now, this is the same with a lot of modern cars as well, just a lot of people don't do it. Modern cars are designed to be much more robust than these older cars were, hence why a lot of people don't feel the need, but there are a lot of benefits for doing it, and a lot of reasons why you still should. And if you don't, you could perhaps limit the life of the various components in your car. Now, I'll start off with the engine. When you start the car and it's cold, the oil is thicker, because that's what oil does. When it gets cold, it gets thicker. It doesn't travel around the engine as easily. So when you start the car, you'll notice it's quite rough. This is especially true in diesel cars. The idle just feels a bit more rough. You get more vibrations through the cabin. You get perhaps some steam or smoke out the back, more than usual. And it will become more reluctant to rev than usual. This happens on the D5 here, and that is totally normal in cold weather. I sort of liken it to an athlete. You wouldn't go and sprint 100 meters straight away having just got out of an ice bath, would you? It's not something that people do, and everybody does warm-ups before exercise, and you have to do a similar thing with your car. Now, other things that are cold is coolant, obviously. That needs to warm up. All of your pump components, your water pump, your power steering pumps, etc., they're all cold as well, and they're much more likely to fail in cold weather. So there's massive benefits in letting the car sit and warm up, because once that engine heat gets through those components, it reduces sort of the wear on them when they're being used. Now, belts is another thing in the engine, and of course we'll talk about the cam belt and the auxiliary belt. So let's take a look at the belts in question. Obviously, we've got our timing belt in here, which is just tucked under the cover here, and then we've also got our auxiliary belt, which you can just see down here running onto the alternator. Now, these are obviously made out of rubber, and when rubber gets cold it goes stiff, so these belts are more likely to break if put under a lot of load during sort of acceleration in cold weather. So it's always worth just letting them be just let the car sit and run for a bit, because what it will do is, as these belts turn, it will warm them up, and make them more supple and less likely to fail. Something ridiculous like 64% of timing belt failures happen in the winter during cold weather. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. My light module's coming out again. Just tuck that back in. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider, and it's the same essentially. Everything in this car likes to be run between 20 and 25 degrees. That is what cars run optimally at. So anything lower than that just creates more wear and tear on the engine's components. Now, this is exactly the same for the transmission. So a lot of people don't consider this. Transmissions, again, have fluid in. This fluid goes slightly thicker when the car's cold. So you'll notice that the gear shifts are a bit clunky, the car's a bit reluctant to change gear. That's exactly why. There's no other sort of explanation for it. It's just the cold weather. So allowing that engine to sit, because the coolant from the engine runs into the gearbox as well, that will warm the gearbox and make the transmission work better and reduce wear in cold weather. Simple as, nice and easy. Now, a few of you are probably going to think I'm mad, but I work for a car company and I speak to the engineers all the time about cold weather effect on other components such as tyres, brakes and suspension. Now, running a tyre in cold weather is actually bad for it. Tyres get harder, just like all the other components. So what you'll find is that when it's harder, it's more likely to fray, get damaged. It's just like little bits like this. That's more likely to happen in colder weather. So it's always worth sitting and just letting some of the engine heat go into the tyres, or taking it easy when you're setting off. I always, after I've let the car sit for about a couple of minutes, just long enough for me to get comfortable, turn my music on, and just sort of chill out for a bit, until the car seems to settle down. Drive relatively relaxed. Don't go flooring it straight away, because that's when you damage stuff. And the tyres, what you'll find as the journey gets longer, the tyres are at a lower pressure anyway, because the temperatures are lower, but that puts more pressure on the rubber itself. So bear that in mind. Tyres can be affected by cold weather. Same can be said for suspension components. Now, you know what it's like when your hands are freezing cold, and you try to move them like that really quickly. Well, it's the same with the suspension components. They're much more brittle and much more stiff than normal in colder temperatures. So if you suddenly start chucking it through bends, it's not going to perform the best way, or in the best manner. And it's also going to put more stress on your suspension components. It's again just like, imagine your muscles and your tendons in the legs. As you start to manipulate them more and more slowly, they warm up and perform better, and the springs, etc., are all exactly the same. And I know you probably think I'm all mad, but I've spoken to engineers and they can confirm this is the case. The thermodynamics have a massive effect on car components, whether it's the drivetrain, the suspension, various other bits and pieces, including the brakes as well. They're actually less efficient when they're really cold. We all know that Formula 1 cars have to keep temperature in their brakes, and it's a similar thing with road cars. Obviously, to a much lesser degree, road cars are meant to work at far cooler temperatures than Formula 1 cars, but the concept is exactly the same. Just when you set off, after you've sort of let the car warm up, the sitting and warming up is more for the engine than the transmission, but the job isn't done there. To make sure the car is completely warmed up before you start getting on it, I recommend just driving for 10-15 minutes reasonably smoothly, reasonably relaxed. I mean, if you're a commuter like me, you'll do that anyway, because you don't want to use much fuel driving to work and back. You'd much rather use it for your own use, wouldn't you, rather than driving to work. But if you're taking the car out for a fun drive, definitely just sit and cruise, warm everything up, get the car going smoothly, and then start to push on it. The answer of whether you should idle your car during cold weather, yes, absolutely. And I think it goes more than that. I think you should do more than just idle it. I think you should ease it into a journey. Stretch its legs slowly, just like you would if you were going to the gym or going for a run. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on this, and whether you've got any strange rituals you like to do to warm the car up. I'm fairly easy, to be honest. I just turn it on, sit in it for a while, and then take it easy when I'm on my way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.